I just am who I am. We are all who we are. And you can try all you want. We're trying to, massage this and that. But when the wind settles, you're still the same person. If you were living in your sleep, you would always be the same person. You are existing, not performing. And I think we do more performing than existing in life in general.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. And I'm so excited to finally be here with Carlos, someone that I've been following now for a while. And I'm really, really impressed by all his work he's been doing. But most of all, I'm really curious about him as a human being. And I really want to get to know him. So I invited him here. So welcome, Carlos, to my podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice. I've also been following you for quite a while. And I'm very, very happy to be in this chat.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so for people who don't know you, would you like to introduce yourself? I think you're doing a great job doing that on your own.
Well, I'm going to make it very, very quick. My name is Carlos Segura. I was born in Cuba because my family fled Barcelona during the Franco years and moved to Cuba for freedom. And then we lost everything there again. Came to Florida, grew up in Miami. I then moved to Chicago in 1980. And we started, I was working at ad agencies, started my own design firm in 90, started and launched T26 Type Foundry in 93, first Type Foundry on the web to sell fonts online. One of the first, I think. There may have been another one, I think, in Germany. And then we launched what I call an automotive archive in 94 called cartype.com, which is currently being relaunched. And spend my day creating and enjoying life with my beautiful wife.
I love that.
Thank you. You're so kind.
So what I would like to start knowing a little bit more about, because I also have an advertising background and a branding background. And I know you started out in the advertising agency than before. So I read that about you. I'm a little bit curious about that. Like how was the advertising world if you then compare it to starting your own design studio?
Well, I have an interesting view of that whole process from a personal perspective, not a natural business perspective. And the reason I do is because I never went to school. I barely got out of high school. When I was very, very young, I was a drummer in a band, and I got into the band when I was 12 years old as a roadie, and then was in the band my whole youth, and that was going to be my life. I was a drummer.
Yeah.
It goes even deeper, frankly, because I wasn't even aware of advertising as a social reality. I had no awareness that that thing existed. And so when I quit the band, when I was 19, I moved to New Orleans, and I don't know how I got the courage to apply for an art director position in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but I did, and I got the job. I was astonished because I didn't know what an art director was. I didn't know what an ad agency was. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I got the job, and the boss that hired me was one of these people that was very free. He basically, on the first day, said to me, "There's your office. There's your writer. You guys do whatever you want." And then he disappeared. And so I took it to heart, and we did whatever we wanted.
Wow.
And in 6 to 8 months, we produced all kinds of materials for their clients. And we won a lot of awards that year. And then some agency in Chicago read about it in Adweek magazine and offered me a job in Chicago. And that's how I came to Chicago as a creative director. Also, I had no idea what it was. But here's the thing. That process for me was my school. And I really learned that there is truly a difference between advertising and design. And I don't regret a minute of it, because I learned the power of strategy and the power of being true to yourself and following, the target audience, not the client's desires. I often say to clients as politely as I can, you don't matter in this picture. The two things that matter are the strategy and your target audience.
Yeah.
Eventually, I grew dissatisfied with advertising because, in my opinion, and it's my opinion only, advertising is targeted to the masses as it should be. That's what advertising is.
Really?
And sometimes clients lose sight that when you want to be everything to everyone, then you're nothing. So to me, design became more emotional and more personal. And I decided that I wanted to go down that angle. In addition to the fact that I was really a huge fan of print, even though one of the things that brought fame to my career was I don't know if you remember when Apple first started, they had a program called HyperCard, which was a 8-bit animation program.
Okay.
And I did an animation sequence using the Apple IIc and then moved down to the Macintosh. And Communication Arts Magazine did a story and called me the animation king or whatever. I don't know what verbiage it was, but it was ridiculous. Uh, and I started giving it out on floppy disks as my business card. And this is just when floppy disks were beginning to hit the market before you use the big 5.25 inch soft disk. And I would hand people this floppy disk in a plastic jewel case, and they would look at it and go, "What am I supposed to do with this? I can't even use it. I can't even look at it." But anyway, I got a lot of press. But that's how my career started. It was
Wow.
just very interesting.
It's interesting because a lot of people still define things a little bit different, and I would love to hear your definition more about like what is what is design for you from a commercial perspective? Like if you would compare art and design, can you like describe a little bit how you see design?
Well, I don't diminish the creativity that we do in our business by calling it commercial because that's icky to me.
Yeah.
I do things because I feel they're proper and honest and true and real and effective
Yeah.
and come from your soul. And I think that speaks volumes much greater than commercial. Commercial to me is just uh, a way to justify something that shouldn't be, uh, simply for the act of making money. And I don't approach things that way. I'm could be completely wrong. I mean, I'm definitely, that's just me.
It's your truth. Yeah.
So I try to form a relationship with the act of creating. And as I mentioned earlier, I really, really do respect and don't talk down to the target audience.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that I got disillusioned with advertising. I can't tell you how many meetings I was in where an account executive or the client or the boss would say, "Well, I get it, but will they?" And that was offensive to me, thinking that, why do you think that you're smarter than they?
Exactly.
What makes you think that? And I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. So I wanted to explore a form of creativity that was more human and more true.
I'm kind of curious about like when you say what people don't also need. Do you talk about that advertising kind of they create a demand that it's not there?
What I'm saying is that I don't like trickery. I don't like fake. I don't like bait and switch. I don't like any of that stuff. To be honest with you, it's why my wife and I have been married for 36 years. And we met on a blind date. And 10 minutes into it, I knew she was it.
You did? Oh my God, we need to go back to this. Yes, yes. Okay.
She is the same way as I am. We don't like this playing around silliness. And I just also want to be very clear. I'm not bashing advertising. I think there's a lot of incredible examples of amazing work. I just think that in general, the bigger scope, and I use a grocery store as an example, especially in America. In Europe, it tends to be a little bit more well balanced with regard to aesthetics. But you walk into any grocery store and you see shelves of examples of It's no big deal. It's a shock to see something beautiful in that shelf,
Mm,
in my opinion.
yeah.
So that's how I see advertising. Every once in a while, something great will sneak out, and there's a lot of examples of great work. I mean, clearly, but I just think that it just wasn't for me. Maybe I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But
What role does strategy have for you when it comes to branding and design? Like what does strategy mean to you before you start designing?
strategy is a very big thing, and because it's so big, it gets lost in being able to define it because it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, I feel like strategy to me is simply the honest trip between what you think and what you think people want. And it's that avenue that is very hard to stay on the road because there's so many potholes in that road. And so for me, it's just being focused on getting to the other side without getting a flat tire.
I love that. I never heard anyone describe it that way. I think it's wonderful. Okay, thank you so much for explaining that. Now we have some definition here. But what I'm do want to go back to before we talk about the dating, because I want to talk about that too. But I would like to go back to the first job you got because I think something really interesting here. I have heard this too because I don't have like academic background and everything, and people told me they hired me for attitude and they want to train me for skills. So when you tell this story, I'm like, do you think there's something in your approach when that made you so kind of fearless? So you approach things in a little bit more different in a different way because maybe you didn't have so much respect for the whole industry or like what it's because you just went in there when you talk about it and then you won awards and stuff, and that feels really brave for me. Like you must be willing to do things that really stand out. So do you think your background actually was a really good background now when you look back, or how do you reflect on that?
One of the things that I carry with me through my whole life that I've been trying to find an answer to is trying to figure out why I made it. Because there were many reasons why I should not have made it. No education. I didn't go to school. I didn't have any graphic training. I grew up in the housing project. I left Cuba during the war or the revolution, whatever you call it. And I was exposed to a lot of bad behavior when I was in the band that I could have easily strayed, as many of my friends did, and go down the wrong path. In fact, two of my brothers uh, did the same and are actually dead because of it.
Oh my God.
But to answer your question, I feel like everything that's happened to me in my life and in my career has been an accident. Things have happened to me. I haven't initiated any of it. And so I have to wonder that it's not really that I planned it, it's that I chose the avenue to go to. So life presented things to me, and I was somehow, don't know how, capable of choosing the path that served me. Uh, I can't give you a more honest answer than that, which I realize to the listener is a zero answer because it doesn't really explain any of it. I actually feel like I'm kind of, well, I'm actually quite shy. I'm a loner. I don't like to hang out and all the parties and all that kind of, I just don't, I'm not into any of that. So I always tended to just behave as uh, serving myself, not as a um, conceited way, but I once heard this quote. I don't remember who said it. You really have to make yourself happy first so you can make others happy. Because you can't make others happy if you're unhappy. So I always wanted to please myself first, you know,
Yeah.
and that gave me the tools to be able to serve that feeling to other people. And I think that's how I've done it. I mean, honestly, I have no other answer because I have no training for it.
But when you look back at your parents, do you think is this from them?
As I mentioned earlier, two of my brothers just not passed away. They died. Um, we have the same parents, and they went down the wrong path, and I went
Yeah.
down the right path. So I don't have that answer either. It's very, very weird. But my parents, God bless them, gave me everything that I have. I mean, they literally, I mentioned this on the podcast with Chris Stowe,
Uh,
and I feel bad about this. They literally changed their life to give me a better life. And then I went off and had that better life, but I forgot about them. I was so busy building my life. And then before you know it, they passed away a couple of years ago also. But as Chris Doe asked me, do you think your mother regrets that? And I said, not for a second,
yeah.
because she wanted a better life for me, and that's what she gave me, and that's what I got.
Maybe, if that is what they really, really wanted, isn't the best gift you can get then back to see someone really do what you wanted? Like, isn't that the ultimate best gift you can give, to actually live that life that they wanted for you?
It was definitely the best gift I gave to my mother. I mean, she
Yeah.
literally thought I walked on water.
Ugh.
And you know what the heartbreaking thing was? That she was dealing with me, who, as I said, she
Mm.
was very proud of. And then she was dealing with my other brothers. And it was just such a black and white situation.
Yeah.
I feel like my brothers ruined their life. It was a horrible, horrible existence for them to deal with them. And then she had me. So
Mm.
it was a very, very tough.
So you're the youngest?
No, I'm the oldest.
The oldest?
Hmm. I was the first.
Mm. Do you think that people are born creative? Are you born creative?
No, I don't. And I don't think people are born good either. I have this conversation with my wife all the time.
Tell me more.
Well, I think generally speaking, we're taught to be good. We are a byproduct of our society. It's why people say, education is important. Obviously, it's important because education r- rises, it elevates you to be a better everything.
Yeah.
So I believe that if we were left in the wild as animals are, we would be very different human beings.
How would you be if you were in the wild?
When I grew up, as I said, in Cuba and also in Miami, Miami was kind of like a tough place to grow up in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. Um, it was just a, gang infested, crime ridden world.
Yeah.
So I have friends that, are either uh, they went to jail or they're dead or their life isn't that great. And as I mentioned, including my brothers too, because they chose that path. And there's this, I don't know how much cursing you allowed in your podcast.
You can say whatever you
Okay, well,
want.
you can cut this out. There's this amazing saying that I love: the more you fuck around, the more you find out.
Yeah.
And my brothers fucked around a lot,
Oh.
and they found out.
But I'm curious about this when you said please yourself first, because that's really something I've been struggling with my entire life. Did you learn how to do that, or did that also come from your parents?
My family's generation has lost everything 4 times. I'm part Lebanese, part French, part Barcelonian, part Cuban. And in every one of those situations, they lost everything because of conflict or war or whatever. And I think that as you grow up, you look at your grandfather and your father and you pick up behaviors of, I don't want to put up with this. And somehow that seeped into me. And I just don't like uh, people telling me what to do or how to do it or when to do it. And it just formed my personality and shaped how I think, how I approach things, and what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And most importantly, perfectly willing to accept the consequences of those choices. Because I think that's really the dividing line between everything.
Mm-hmm.
The things that people do and the things that people don't do are solely dependent on that line. Are you willing to accept the consequences or not? People spend their lives doing things they don't like or they don't love or they don't want to do because they don't want to accept the consequences. So they'll take a job they don't want to do because the consequences of that is, okay, I'm not going to make the money, or I'm not going to be able to live the way I want. I'm not going to be able to buy this or that or the other. So they do what they. So I just don't care. Basically, I don't care.
Okay, I love this because this is such a good segue and intro into your business cards. Like I really need to hear more about them because that was actually the first time that, I mean, I read about you before, but I didn't like know so much about you. And then I saw those business cards, and honestly, I got a little bit scared. Like I got really impressed. Like how do you have the guts to say something like that? But also a little bit scared because I'm like, who is this person who writes something like this? Uh, no judging, but I felt that way. So first of all, do you remember in your head what's on your business cards?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, do you want to share with people?
yes I do. Here, I'll show you.
Yeah.
So here's my business card. I'll read it to you in a second.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the other side is this. And so before I read it, though, I'm going to tell you a little story
Mm-hmm.
about this, if I may.
Yes, of course.
This card was not born out of a social media campaign. It's not clickbait. It's not, hey, let's do this so I can get a lot of clicks. And this was born out of an actual occurrence that happened, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. I don't remember. I don't know if you know who Jason Fried is from Basecamp.
Yes, yes.
It's now actually called 37 Signals again. Uh, I was one of the three co-founders of 37 Signals with Jason. Him and I are really good buddies.
Mm-hmm.
One day we went to lunch and he goes, "Hey man, you're not going to believe this. I had lunch with this guy the other day. His name is Chris Tagg. He runs a company out of Chicago here called Defy Bags. And he says he knows you." And I go, "Oh yeah, I remember Chris Tagg. He was one of my partners when I was at the ad agency business." And he goes, we were talking and Chris goes, "Man, that Carlos, he's just amazing. He's great. But man, he's difficult to work with." And I thought, "Oh shit, that's kind of hurtful. That it hurt me." And then I thought, no, I am hard to work with. I'm hard to work with because I give a shit, basically.
Mm.
A couple of days later, I wrote this business card, which says, "I'm hard to work with. I'm argumentative. I'm opinionated. I'm selective. I am difficult. I am picky. Get better work done." And then the back says, "I will not agree with everything you say. I will not always say yes. I will not use your wife's favorite color. I will not assume the target is stupid. I will not rely on focus groups. I will not make the logo bigger. And I will not do something that's been done before."
It's so freaking genius. Oh my
So
God.
here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. So Jason at the time had a blog called Signal versus Noise, and he posted this card, and it just exploded. I mean, it just went viral like nothing else I had done before. And I've been doing, I think pretty nice work for a while, and then I do this, and it just explodes. So that led me to a couple weeks later. I had this situation with a client that I did not enjoy, and I wrote the contract that I have that was also born out of a real thing, and that went viral in all kinds of places, including some legal forums. They were saying, this is how contracts should be, super simple. I feel like the moral of the story for me with these messages isn't that I'm tough or cocky or whatever. It's just I just want to be real. That's all I want to do. I just want to be real. I don't want to play games. I just want to call out what I feel is important, and I want to work with people, like-minded people who feel the same way. That's all that is. It's not a show-off piece. And the thing that hurts me the most sometimes is people look at that and they say, "Oh, this guy's just cocky. You don't want to work with this guy." That's not what I am. I don't think.
I think if you get to hear something like this when you are a little bit younger, can give you the confidence that to be direct and straightforward is not being mean, and to be polite is not being kind. It could actually be the opposite.
When I embark on a relationship with a client that understands my voice, then something's good that's going to come out of that. So I feel like I'm planting a seed for a beautiful flower, you know, and honesty is the water that's going to make it flourish.
Okay, I love that. And now, because you said it, I just have to go back because I took a note about how you met your wife. It feels like
Okay.
this is connected in a way because, you said you're both very straightforward.
I was reborn the day I met her. I mean, she was just the most, when I was a little kid, when I was a little boy, I had this vision in my mind of the woman I wanted. It's just so weird. In fact, I had a cousin uh, who looked Asian. She wasn't Asian. In fact, her nickname was Chinita.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I was in love with this girl. I was absolutely in love with her. But I digress. Anyway, we met on a blind date because when I was single, I didn't cook. So I used to go out to dinner every night. And at the time, my copywriter and I, that worked at an ad agency in Chicago, we were both going to move to Japan to go work at Dentsu. And we used to go to this Chinese restaurant 3-4 times a week. And I met the waitress and I got to know the waitress. And she said she had a really good friend that she wanted to set me up with. And it was my
What?
wife's son.
Oh,
And we met, and immediately it was just magic. It was, and it still is.
what is so special with her?
Literally everything. I mean, it's amazing.
I'm really interested about this whole thing because I'm so fascinated how you got that, like, please yourself first, be so fearless, very direct. Because, like I said, I struggle with the opposite thing. I'm such a people pleaser. And I think
But
being
I want to interrupt you
polite.
for a second. If I may, let me interrupt you because you said I'm fearless. I really am not fearless. I'm not strong at all. I know that's what is perceived. I'm not tough. I'm not strong. I'm not, like, I actually think I'm kind of weak. The byproduct of me standing up for myself is because I'm weak. It's because I don't want to deal with this stuff because I can't handle this stuff.
What do you mean by weak? Like, in what way are you weak?
I'm weak because I don't like conflict. So I do this as a filter to eliminate conflict. I don't want to be fighting with people. I don't want to be unclear. I don't want to mislead people into thinking something that is not true. So I'm clear about what I say, which to some people comes off as brave, but it's not bravery. It really isn't.
But I feel like you've been so brave, like in your work and challenge things. Don't you think that's bravery either? The way you've.
I do admit that I'm a little bit experimental in my work in some cases. Um, but I don't think of it as experimental for the sake of being different. I feel like it's for the sake of being effective, because I also don't want to follow the crowd. And I think, part of the interesting byproduct of today's world, in my opinion, is that everything is so good that it's hard to see great now. There's so many good things out there, and doing good isn't enough anymore. You have to be astonishing. Forget about great. There's just too much out there. So when I try to do something special, it's not because I'm brave or I'm trying to be, touting how creative I am or any of that stuff. It's just, I'm just trying to literally serve the client and the strategy so they can find a way, have some kind of mechanism to break through and be effective in what they're trying to sell or say or communicate or whatever. That's all I'm doing.
So the motivation for you, would you say that is it for the client? Is it for their customers, or is it for yourself?
In that triangle, I put myself at the bottom. The target is first, the client is second, and I'm third. For me, it's always about the end user. Um, and sometimes, and this could also be misunderstood as bravery, sometimes I'll force the creative to be at a level that makes the client uncomfortable, because I believe that the target can understand it and is embracing of it. There are many situations when you'll have a need by the target that the client is simply unfamiliar with because it's not part of their life. And so when you introduce this thought process to the picture, which involves the client and the target, just because the client doesn't get it doesn't mean it's not right for the target. So the problem isn't the target, it's talking the client into going over here. And so that's the struggle for me. It's not even creating. Creating is the easiest part.
I'm curious about like how you approach your work, like because you really want to do something for these customers, right? To solve their problem in a way, or to make their lives better. How do you get the insights and the ideas how to do this?
There's two ways for me. One, and this is not to be diminished, it's my gut. Two, I probably spend a good half of the day learning. My opinion is that if you're an idiot today, it's because you want to be an idiot. Because everything in the world is accessible to you to learn. I spend so much time learning every day. I would say that I spend more time learning than actually creating. So to me, my instinct comes from that. Is being aware of what my world is, good and bad, and attractive and unattractive. I spend an equal time looking at ugly things as I do beautiful things, because I think it's important to know
And
both.
so when you say learn and look at beautiful things, ugly things, different things, can you give an example of what that is? Like, what do you spend your time studying?
I do a lot of tutorials. I surf the web a lot with regard to input from different parts of the world, not just locally. I try to understand the beliefs of different cultures and different markets. Even within the United States, for example, there's a different vibe in the South that there is in the West, that there is in the East.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to really soak up that kind of understanding of what people really like. And, I'll touch a little bit on the focus group.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the 1984 spot that Apple did back in
Yes.
1984 to
Yes.
introduce the Macintosh? Well, there's a very interesting video on YouTube about the focus group that Shia Day held for that TV spot.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
You must watch it. If if the agency had relied on that focus group, that spot would have never lived. It's astonishing. And so if there was better proof of a gut feeling and a belief in your creative and a strategy to stand firm on doing something that you believe in, it's that video of the focus group. More importantly, if you think about it, now, you look at that spot now and you see it completely out of context, because we all know what computers are now. We all know what they can do. We all know the beauty of an Apple and Macintosh and blah, 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 right? We all know that. 1984, nobody knew that. Apple comes out with a new computer, doesn't mention computer, doesn't show a computer, airs this commercial at the Super Bowl, which I believe cost $4 million back then in 1984 dollars. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is. That is absolutely amazing. But what is intuition?
I don't know. I feel like it's whatever stream of consciousness you're currently connected to. I mean, there's a reason why some people can deliver a home run and some people cannot. And it's intuition.
Yeah. So you said creative is not, you're not born creative, but do you get born with a specific level of intuition? Or is that something that you get by getting experience?
I think that might be more accurate. Yeah. I think it might be more accurate. If I had not left the band and remained in the band, I would have not done any of the things that I did in my career, but I would still have the same intuition to do the best I can in my field. There are also plenty of people who are musicians who don't have that and don't make it. But here's the very, very interesting part. There's a lot of them that do have it and also don't make it. So how do you explain that?
Yeah, how do you explain that?
I don't have an explanation. We talked about earlier, there are many, many reasons why I should not have made it, right? And yet I did. And there are many, many people out there that are way, way, way better than I am, that are like, in their 20s and are still way better than I am. And they have a hard time making it. So I don't know. I just think it's like finding love, as we talked earlier. Sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
So let's talk a little bit about self-acceptance. Because when you say that you see yourself as weak, I can't just help wonder, have you always accepted yourself?
I haven't always liked everything about me, but I've never wanted to be somebody else.
Mm.
I was at a coffee shop and I was looking around doing this mental exercise I was looking at everybody and I thought to myself, if I wasn't me, what person sitting in here would I like to be, just from a visual thing, right? And then I picked some guy, I don't know. And then this is the best part. And this is why I talk about it. Then I realized I am being completely narrow-minded by doing that, because I didn't pick any female. It didn't even cross my mind. And I thought, wow, I just experienced something, like I opened my mind. Like, why wouldn't I have included everybody? Why was it just the guys? And I felt like in my heart, I'm being close-minded by doing that. And that was very interesting to me.
I think that was a really interesting, because not everyone would even reflect on that after. Because
Right.
if you
That was another thing.
Yeah, because if you identify yourself as a man, it could be kind of natural that you just choose a man. But I think it's interesting that you actually reflected on it. It just shows very that.
It would be absolutely nothing wrong to be a woman, but I didn't think about that. And I felt like, why am I being narrow minded? So I always do these. I always test myself. These are just a few examples of how I test. How open minded am I really? That's the test that I always do to myself, at least once a week, maybe more often. I try to look at something. Here's another story. I did this enormous project some years ago. There's a very, very famous letterpress company in Tennessee called Hatch Showprint. They're very, very famous. Hatch Showprint was the exclusive printer for the Grand Ole Opry. Do you know what that is?
No.
The
What?
Grand Ole Opry is from the late 1800s, and they are the singular country music venue of the United States. Every country music artist that has ever existed, Johnny Cash, whatever, has come through the Grand Ole Opry. It's an old concert stage. And Hatch Showprint did all the posters for Grand Ole Opry. Anyway, I reached out to Hatch Showprint and booked the studio for a long weekend, 3-4 days, to do a project for this company in New York. I was the first design firm to use them for an external project because they never printed for anyone other than Grand Ole Opry. So when I get to the airport, Jim greets me and says, welcome, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have a great time. What kind of music do you like to listen to while you're working? And I said, anything but country. And he goes, perfect. Country it is then. And he
That's so
started
funny.
playing bluegrass music that I had never heard of.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I loved it. And that was another example of me being narrow-minded that taught me a lesson. I'm going to show you an image. And this is purely by accident. This conversation was not planned. I have something framed on my desk that I think you're absolutely going to love, which is a poster child for my life and my approach to life and why I don't want trouble in my life and why I have the business card that I have, which is again to filter the bullshit out
Yeah.
of my life. This is what's on my desk. It's framed. It's a picture of those bags you use to pick up dog shit.
Now I can see it.
Okay. That's the graphic on the bag. And so my task is to remove the bullshit out of my life. That's what's framed on my desk.
Oh my God, I want that. Can I get a copy of that?
I'm actually going to make a t-shirt out of that.
Oh my God, I will buy it right away.
That's what I live for. I don't want shit in my life.
If I could just take your, how you feel about yourself and how you approach things, I would just want to put this in here, and never ever have to doubt myself again.
I just don't care. I don't care, and which is why I have that tag, not sorry. I just don't care. I don't care. And even though I say I don't care, deep down, I kind of do care, really. I mean, again, just like you, I'm a human being, and certain things hurt. I just try to leave the space when that happens. The worst thing you can do is stay in that space. And by space, I mean that thought process, that negativity.
Yeah.
Obviously easier said than done, but you just got to work on it because you're the only person that can shape you. Don't let other people shape you.
I'm curious about this whole, with your personality and your approach. Have that kind of facing your shadows, have you been doing that, like really that deep dive, or did it just come kind of natural for you?
Before I was quote unquote successful, there were plenty of nights when I went to bed literally hungry because I didn't have enough money to eat. And this wasn't that long ago. I was in that position because I didn't want to do a project that I was offered because I just didn't like it. I didn't believe in the project and I didn't want to be
Mm.
a part of it. So I said no. Of course, the byproduct is okay, no equals no money. Go starve to death, right? But I honestly believe that paving your road is what's going to take you to the next location. And if you continually go down the wrong path, you're going to end up at the wrong place. And, sometimes it's going to take longer to get there. But you can't go down the wrong path and then expect everything to change when you're there. It doesn't work like that. Life isn't like that. Your reputation doesn't magically appear. You nurture your reputation, you build it, you create it, and you have to work hard at it. And so these trips are bumpy. That's just the way life is, you know?
Yeah, it's a bumpy road.
I have no other way to uh, underscore the importance of being true to yourself.
Um,
Yourself is all you have, is that's all you got. And really is all you got.
for me, it's like really integrity to say no to
Yeah.
things. It's self-respect to be able to do that.
The line on my cards, what is it? Hard to work with, or I'm opinionated. Sometimes when you, as you pointed out, you'll say no to something or you don't want to do something, could be perceived as difficult to work with, right? Like let's say you're at an ad agency and someone says, let's do this. And you said, no, we're not going to do that. That throws you into this guy is hard to work with bucket. But are you really doing it because you're hard to work with? Or are you maybe perhaps doing it because you actually care? Like maybe you don't really believe that that's the way you should do it. So I'm troubled by the fact that people jump to the conclusion immediately when you say no that you're hard to work with, as opposed to, oh, let's ask him why he's saying no.
What if it's also really generous? Because if you also say no, because you might feel that you're also not the right person to do it for yourself and for others.
That's another thing. I have turned down many, many, many projects that come to me, and I am actually particularly proud of this because I often say, anybody else would have said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. Give me the money and I'll do it." But I will not do it because I am petrified that I'm not going to be able to deliver the trust that that client is going to place on someone. If I can't deliver on that trust, I will not take the job. I just won't do it. And I also won't take it and then farm it out to someone.
A lot of people do that.
I have a conversation with a very good friend of mine who's a really good businessman. And I always joke around with him and saying, I'm a horrible business person because anybody else would take it. That's the business part of creative, right? Um, and so I often wonder whether I'm a good businessman or not when it comes to that part, because if I was in this for the business part,
Yeah.
of course I would take it. That's what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be doing. But I don't think what I do is a commodity. And I'm also not in the service business. I am in the making shit happen business.
This is how I've been working too, my entire life. I think I'm stronger and more brave than I think that I
I think
am.
you are.
Because I said several times to clients, especially to CEOs. I know one time I said, you know what? I don't give an F. I didn't say the F word, but I don't give an F what you think about this color because you've been aligned with this all the time when we've done the strategy. And now this is your subjective opinion about that you don't like this color. You can have whatever color you want in your house, but I don't care. This is
Yeah.
not your taste and your house. And he said, you're right. And then that was such a good lesson for me, because then I realized that if I would have been more, oh, I do whatever you say, that was just one thing, but they start to treat you in a specific way. Now he even more started to trust me. So for even other things, he started to reach out to me and asked about my opinion, because he knew I was honest and I didn't, I was prepared to actually tell my truth. So I do think that I kind of, follow that line a lot too, that I do what I think is best. And sometimes I say no to things that could be really good for my business. I just don't feel it's right, So maybe I'm not that different from you anyway. I don't know.
You're not that different. And in fact, you are building the very reputation for yourself that we spoke of earlier. That's part of the construction of who you are.
I would like to ask you about detachment to your work, because a lot of creatives have a difficult time to detach to their work. When someone told me, especially when I was a little bit younger, but also kind of recently, told them that they didn't like my work, it was like someone hit me and didn't like me. It's really difficult to separate that. But I'm working on it. I'm really working on it. How how do you approach that when it comes to how to detach from your work?
I don't detach myself from my work.
You don't?
My work is, no, my work is who I am. And the reason why I do take things personally is because it comes from my person. So everything that comes out of my brain is personal. And so whether it's a compliment or a task or a piece of creative, it is part of my soul. So I don't have a need to detach from it, which is why I don't apologize for it. And if you don't like it, that's perfectly fine. But that doesn't define what came out of my brain. It doesn't change the definition of what came out of my brain because you don't like it. You're perfectly free to not like it,
Yeah.
which is, as I say, why they make chocolate and vanilla. But I don't need to apologize for it, and I don't need to detach from it. And if you have an issue with it, it's not my issue. I have no issue with it.
If I put in my soul and heart in something, it's really difficult to remove that from it, because it's almost like I put it in there when I created it. So then I have to kind of take it back. How do you do
Yeah, but
that?
you don't have to. You don't have to. That's what I'm telling you. You don't have to, and you shouldn't feel the need to even think that you have to. It's like saying, like when you make a mistake, it's like saying, I wish I hadn't made that mistake. That's the worst thing you can do, because that mistake is going to teach you how to do it better next time.
Mm-hmm.
Mistakes are not negative. Mistakes are positives.
Yeah.
And any creative that you come up with, perceived negatively by someone, i.e., a
Mm.
mistake, is not a mistake.
Do you feel, because you see yourself differently when you see yourself from the outside, how you sound like and how you come across? Do you think that's have affected your relationship in your life? Like, I'm not saying that just romantic relationship, but
Absolutely.
with other people in general.
But I have a very, very few, a handful, one hand, by the way, very, very close people that I would do anything for. That if I ever lost, it would fuck me up.
Do you want deliberately work on it so you like how you come across? You know what I mean? Because I don't see you that way. I don't feel that
I
about
mean,
you.
I
But
do, I
no.
do try and work on it almost every day. I just feel like, I just am who I am. We are all who we are, and you can try all you want with trying to, massage this and that. But when the wind settles, you're still the same person. If you are like living in your sleep, right? Forget about the influences of the world and your surroundings. If you were living in your sleep, you would always be the same person because you were existing, not performing. And I think we do more performing than existing in life in general.
Yes.
Not only would it destroy me if those relationships would end, but the really interesting thing, particularly with two people, the thing I wonder the most, this is going to sound ridiculous, is do they feel the same way about me? That is on my mind all the time. And I don't believe that they do. That's the worst part.
Really?
And here's the other thing. You know, one of the questions I asked Chris Do on his podcast, I asked him a question: is what is one thing that you wish you would know that you will never know?
Yeah, I know.
And
I remember that question.
well, that question I asked him was with regard to that. The answer didn't get to that, and I never pushed it. But that's what I was fishing for when I asked him that question.
I see what you
I will
mean.
I will never know that answer, and it drives me insane.
I wonder, is it out of fear you don't ask them?
No, I it's not only fear, it's weakness. I don't want to reveal my insecurities.
I think there are a lot of people who feel like this. And there's also so many people out there who feel so lonely that actually do have friends around them. And because that's why I asked was like, are you afraid of the answer? Because what would happen if they say no, like they don't feel the same
Well,
way?
first of all, they're not. No one's going to tell you that answer. No one is going to be that honest and tell you, you know, Carlos, you're right. I don't love you as much as you love me. I mean, come on.
Might be a little bit too much to say, yeah. But you can
It's not
probably
going to happen. So
see
why?
it, yeah, or feel it.
Yeah. So why ask the question? Why reveal your vulnerabilities when you know that the answer is not going to come anyway? So just leave it alone. You know, life is what it is. I just have to accept what it is and how I feel about it. I have to accept my feeling about what I think it is.
Do you have any proof of that, or is it an old story, like you said?
I
Also,
don't have any proof, and I think it comes from, I think the degree of admiration from me to them is so high that I can't even imagine it being returned.
Mm. You know what? When I hear you, two things that I reflect on. One is you said selfish before. I would never use that word. The short time we've been talking now about you, I would say that I think you have a lot of self-respect, but also a lot of respect for other people. I don't think that is selfish at all.
You don't?
No, I
Okay,
think
good.
it's more actually that you really just show what I felt from start, that you have a really big caring heart. Because I think that's caring deeply about yourself and about other people.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that, but I also have to tell you that I don't see the definition of selfishness as a negative because I think selfishness is really, it's about self. It's not, it's a reflection about you, not about others. So it may be a negative, but I don't see it. I don't act upon it as a
Yeah,
negative.
I see what you mean.
I respond to it as a gift. I think selfishness is a gift.
Carlos, when you because you can go back and objectively look at yourself now, when you say that thing about the client, they say one thing and they do something else. When that happened in a meeting, do you mention that for them? And because that's what I do. I say, oh, I just get a feeling right now that you're saying one thing, but it feels like you're thinking something else. Am I wrong? Do you do that?
The line on my business card, I am opinionated, comes from that very thing.
Okay.
Um, I have a lot of emotion towards clients in a caring way, not in a negative way, even though I find that often they do negative things. In fact, to my astonishment, I've been in many, many meetings where it's a room full of people and the client will say something idiotic, and everybody in the room knows it's idiotic except the client. And I always wonder, how is this possible? This is a smart human being. He runs this company. They're successful. How can you do that and say something like that? So I appreciate the pressures that clients are under, because many
Yeah.
times, a client will do something because their competition does it, or because it's been done before, or
Uh-huh.
because it's familiar,
Yeah.
because they're comfortable with it, or whatever the reason is. But those are none of the reasons why they should be doing anything. That is not a reason to do something. And so it's my duty, as I see it, to
Yeah.
say and speak up and be honest. And if that's going to label me as opinionated, I mean,
So be. Yeah.
if you don't say something, you're cheating your client.
Yes, I totally agree.
So you want to call me names, hard to work with, whatever, then, I think that's on you, man. That's not on me. I'm trying to help you. Now, you can disagree with me.
Mm.
And I could also be wrong too. It's not like I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm the Bible,
Yeah.
but you do have a choice. Your choice is you listen to me
Mm.
or listen to somebody else. It's okay.
Just listening to you and having this conversation, I realize I think it's good because I see that kind of you are an emotional person. That I feel that it's good for me to see that you can have this self acceptance, self love, and still go all in kind of with emotions, with heart and soul, and be a little bit, put yourself out there and be a little bit hurt sometimes, but still have that respect for yourself and stand up the way you actually been doing for client all the time. I can do that too. I can do that on social media too and have my opinions. I have a lot of opinions. So it was so valuable just talking to you because I feel like found a little bit back to myself in a weird way.
Well, I can't even believe that you're dismissing your English, because I think you have perfect English. And in fact, one of the reasons I was looking forward to talk to you is because I absolutely love your voice. I love it. And I heard it when you were talking with Christo, and I was always wondering, man, I wonder what she's about, because she has such a great radio voice, as they say.
Oh, really?
And you just, it just sounds great. It sounds great.
I love and appreciate talking to people when you can be a little bit more deeper conversations. There's so much in this world that are so, shallow. And also when people have to perform in a way and show up. And I know exactly how that is because I've been like that myself. But now when I feel a little bit more brave to try to just be me, it's so much more interesting to have conversations with people too, because you don't have to prove yourself all the time. And then when you can open up, someone else can open up, and that can just be a deeper conversation. And I love those conversations.
I feel like if you're really, really honest and open and just able to express unspoken thoughts,
Yeah.
it really does create a completely different aura of understanding why people do things the way they do and how they do it. You
Mm.
know, it's very revealing. I find it to be quite helpful.
I am very open about my journey and my struggles with things because I think when I reveal things that it's almost like I don't feel any shame for it anymore. It doesn't scare me the same way. It's like the moment I talk about it, it's out there and then it doesn't hurt me so much. So it's been like a way of kind of processing and sharing my journey, but also because I feel like
Hmm.
I'm very grateful for guidance and support I got from Chris. And I want to share that with others because I know that I'm not alone. and a lot of people can relate to me. So just by hearing about my struggles, I want to encourage people to say it's never too late. I'm turning 49. I did my first content when I was 46. I didn't want to speak English. There's a lot of things, and it's never too late. You can do what you want. So, but I also heard people say you're destroying your career by being so weak and
Bullshit.
vulnerable.
Absolutely not. That is complete bullshit. Complete. That's weakness on their part.
It is, yeah.
I mean, we as human beings already have such a struggle just existing. The fact that someone is bringing a rule upon your life is so ridiculous to me that you should change because of how they feel. It's just not a thing that I think is a good idea. I mean, I look at you and I can't even believe that you have any doubts about anything.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
don't.
I don't even understand. I don't understand it.
There's a lot of things going on inside this head.
Well, I mean, we all have our little, things up there, but
I was so, even when I was going to travel, I was so afraid how people would judge me like in real life, because I was like, what if they really don't like me when they meet me? Like maybe I can't live up to, the impression people have about me, and then they get super disappointed, when they see me or meet me. So, there's a lot of kind of feelings like that. But
for as long as I've been doing this, I do conferences all over the world. And I swear to God, I get so nervous. I can't stand it. And by the way, I used to be like this when I was in the band. Before every performance, I was just sweating. Like I was
yeah.
just like, but then what happens is once I get on stage, I turn into somebody else. And every time, at least as far as I know, everyone leaves satisfied. So I feel like the fact that I get nervous and the fact that you doubt yourself is a good sign, because the minute you lose that, then you're cocky. And
Oh.
then you're not going to learn anything. So the way I try to soften the blow of my nervousness is to think, I don't want that nervousness to go away, because that's what makes me want to make my presentation better.
yeah. It's a nerve. It's a little bit like this, like you want, you
I
try a little
work
bit harder.
so hard
Yeah.
to make, I spent weeks, months doing my presentations. In fact, my wife has often told me, why do you spend so much time on your presentations? The people that are going to go see your presentations have never seen it before. And I said, I don't do it for that reason. I do it for me. Going back to satisfying me first. If I satisfy me first and I know that I've done everything I could possibly do to make a good presentation, when I get on stage, it's going to come off that way.
You know what, Carlos? What do you know what I hope? I will manifest that right now. That next year at Adobe Max, I would love to be on stage, because that's my dream, to speak at Adobe Max. I would love for you to be there, Chris to be there. And when I have my first talk in front of a lot of people for the first time, where I'll be shitty nervous and I will share my story, I would love to have you and Chris in the audience.
I would love to be there. I'll tell you what, the only way I'll speak at Adobe Max is if you're sitting next to me. How
No,
about that?
I will do that. I will do that.
Okay.
I will have you on one side, Chris on the other side, and then we can go. Then we can go to the
We'll
party
make a little
together.
sandwich.
Oh my God, this was so great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hopefully we can do this again.